Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of The County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. We are starting our show in our edit bay instead of the studio to demonstrate that there are many steps that we go through to take the show from creation to your TV set. One of the last and most important steps is actually broadcasting it from the transmitter to your house. That is the topic of our show today, as there may be some changes that interrupt that process to many Utahns. To give you some backgrounds on Utah's translator system, here's Terry Wood.
What do you think of when you hear the word translator? Does a picture of the United Nations come to mind with hundreds of people translating English into hundreds of languages?
But if you're watching me at the county seat right now on your television and you don't have cable or satellite and you live away from the Wasatch Front, it is a translator that's telling you and showing you what I'm saying.
Well, a translator is what gets the signal from its originating station, the broadcast television station, all the way down to St. George, all the way to Richfield, up to Logan, in order for people to get their signal, turn on the TV and get their signal.
Utah has the most extensive network of television translators in the country, around 100 located on peaks all over the state. They carry 791 individual broadcast signals to communities as close to Salt Lake as Tooele and as far away as Montezuma Creek. A television translator is a combination of receiving antenna and transmitter tower. It picks up a television signal through the antenna and then rebroadcasts it on another frequency to yet another tower or to a community. It's kind of like a baton relay race, with one tower handing off your program to another part of the team until it reaches your TV set. The vast majority of communities in Utah rely on these over-the-air translators to keep television free of charge. Nearly 250,000 homes count on them as their primary and, in many cases, only source of television. This makes them very important not only to the people in their homes, but the entire community as well.
Just being able to turn on the news and feel a sense of what's going on in your state and your community. Take that out of the equation, and what happens when we have an earthquake or a natural disaster? Well, everyone turns to the news to find out what's going on, what they need to do, where they need to go.
Many communities across the state actually budget money to help maintain the network of translators, but that doesn't mean their future is secure here in Utah. The FCC is planning to reduce the frequency spectrum for these translators by about half and give that frequency to the cellular phone companies for broadband or 4G. That could easily mean that Utah's most rural communities would no longer have access to free television.
We all love our smartphones, we all love the internet, but when you look at effectiveness and use of spectrum, nobody can touch broadcast.
And you know, I tend to agree. We'll go into more depth on this in our roundtable discussion in just a few moments. For the county seat, I'm Terry Wood.
Thanks, Terry. We appreciate it. I'm going to grab my jacket and head on down to the studio to meet our guests. We'll be back after the commercial break.
Kolob, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kolob.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Imagine a unique, breathtaking cascade misting into the deep pool below. A world-renowned national scenic byway that snakes through some of the greatest views in the world. A canyon painted red by the hands of time. A land that brings the Wild West back to life. And it's all in one amazing place. Here's some advice when visiting Bryce Canyon Country. Take your time.
When you buy Utah made and grown.
I'm a Utah's own vegetable grower. I care about the foods I produce.
Because when it comes to quality local foods, I understand the importance of Utah grown and raised.
The jobs that we enjoy are vital because Utah's own supports our communities.
As a consumer, I look for Utah's own products because Utah's own is good for me and it's good for Utah.
Keep it here at home, Utah's own.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about the translator system, the television translators that dot the state and bring the signal from Salt Lake City TV stations out to rural Utah and really some of the surrounding neighbors. Joining us for our conversation, Senator Ralph Okerlund, District 24 out of Central Utah. Richard Dutre-Jones, who is the general manager of the station that this show airs on, along with a handful of others here in the marketplace. And Maury Parsons, who runs a small television, is responsible for all of the translators in Central Utah. That is a television station, KTTA 8.1, which we also air on. So I'm pleased to have my two bosses here all at once. Thank you for taking the time to join us. You saw the story, and we tried to cover a lot of information in a short period of time. What did we miss?
So, Chad, you did a great job with that, and I thought Michelle covered some really good points, but there's a really important point that was missed, and that is it isn't just the over-the-air. We have over 24 cable systems that are all over the state, not just Utah, but in the southern part of Idaho, the eastern part of Nevada, the western part of Wyoming, each of whom have to have these translators so they don't get signals. So those have been maintained specifically and put in place just so we can reach into those communities, because with the largest DMA in the country, the largest broadcast area, we have to do that to service everyone living there.
So if somebody's saying, well, this doesn't affect me because I'm on cable, they're
sadly mistaken. There'll be many cable, 24, at least 24 that I'm aware of, that will lose the signals if they lose their translators.
Wow. Now that's not all either. As far as I mean, we're looking at communities, cable, cities, but there are even more remote places that rely on translators. Isn't that correct?
That's true, Chad. I think it's also important to point out that this translator system is a very comprehensive and very complex network that has been in place. The pioneering stage of it has been in place over 50 years. And for rural people, it becomes a normal, everyday way of life. It's like the sun coming up or going down. It's there. But this national broadband plan greatly jeopardizes that ability, and I would like the people to understand that this could change. So, you know, people need to contact their local representatives, their county commissioners, and we'd like to have our state representatives involved and do what we can to preserve as much spectrum as we can.
I guess that would lead me to ask a technical question. When we went through the analog to digital translation and went to high definition, technology led that change, and you were able to put more signal out there because of digital technology into a similar spectrum.
Correct, and it also took a long time.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. But on the translator system, it just seems like this is a shift without technology, and so we added spectrum with the last big change, or availability of signal, not really spectrum, and this time we're losing the ability and the resources to communicate.
Well, that's completely accurate. Not only that, but there's a massive amount of spectrum that isn't even being used. The federal government has more spectrum than anyone, and all they're doing now, this is really a political decision, and this is done by Chairman Wheeler, who is President Obama's appointee to the FCC, who has decided that he doesn't think that television stations are important. and that the wireless and the telephones and the wireless should be the ones that take the spectrum. And by the way, it's being done without them even knowing what they're going to do or even having a plan on how it's going to be used yet. Yet it's just being removed. So this is very different than going to digital, which created more spectrum.
Well, that leaves us a good point to break off. Stay with us. We'll be back with more of the County Seat. We are talking about a plan by the FCC to squeeze some 60-plus frequencies that are used for translators to take TV signal into rural areas and compressing it in about half. And that means that about half the available signal is going to be lost. We'll continue to look at some of the implications of that when we return here on the County Seat.
Tucked away just outside of Cedar City, Utah, are two of southern Utah's best-kept secrets, Canaryville Falls and Kolob Canyons. The rare scenic views create beautiful backdrops to capture the perfect selfie. Get your selfie to Canaryville Falls or Kolob Canyons and get in on one of Utah's best-kept secrets. Go to visitcedarcity.com and access your adventure.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
The Bear Lake Valley is a beautiful, rural, historical, and recreational paradise. The changing of the season makes now a great time to come our way to see the warm colors of fall in contrast with the cool blues of Bear Lake. Visit us in the Bear Lake Valley. Come for the ride, stay for the adventure.
Have you ever wanted to recreate the world around you? Add some excitement, culture, adventure? Well, there's no need to remake the world when that perfect combination already exists. Just remember 4 words. Welcome to Weber County. In Ogden, you'll find everything you're looking for, from the top of Powder Mountain to the restaurants of our revitalized downtown. Ogden, Utah, mountain to metro and everything in between. Visit Ogden.com.
Welcome back to the County Seat. We are talking today about Utah's television translator system, how important it is to the outlying counties. A question, Richard. If you took all the translators out of Utah and we just relied on the tower that sits out there on Farnsworth Peak, right, how far would the signal for Channel 4 go?
Well, not very far. You'd miss people. It'd start dropping off. You wouldn't get people in Logan. Maybe little pockets, but digital is different than analog. It doesn't bounce. It doesn't move. You either get it or you don't get it. It just stops. And that's why this is such an important topic, because what we've found as I've gone back representing the western states to go back to meet with the FCC last July, the commissioners are obsessed with the coastal states, that go on down our eastern and western, Pacific and Atlantic seaboards. The mid-states, with all of our populations, they don't seem to understand that this is how people depend on, and all over our state, especially with the rural communities. As you said, we have more translators than anybody in the entire country right here. And the broadcasters have been very cooperative, working with Moraine and all his people to make sure that we have a very robust and effective way of reaching everyone and servicing all our communities.
Well, I spent a few years in my television career working in Pennsylvania, and it kind of has a similar, challenge that Utah has, except that they relied even more heavily on cable than we do. And so you'd have to cover all those mountains. The big frequencies were taken up by New York and Philadelphia. They were all and they were all done by these mountaintop translators to get over the mountains, with all these communities of 10,000, 5,000, 15,000, and no real urban area in that whole northeast quadrant. So I don't think people understand even what a half shutdown would look like. as far as what their available choices are. And I don't think they understand the difference between cable and satellite and broadcast. So let's ask a couple of questions. I live in Bluff, okay, in San Juan County. I know it's out of your district, but so this happens. What are my options for television at that point?
Options for rural people that utilize translators, your options are going to be either depending on how much spectrum is recovered and how much is taken and what we're able to do at the end. The worst case scenario is you're either going to pay for television, subscription television, or you're going to go without.
And subscription.
And by that he means you get to have Dish or you get to have DirecTV. That's it.
Because the cable will be gone.
Gone.
Yeah. So if they cut it in half, does that mean that half the state doesn't get signal, or does that mean that that spectrum of stations that we enjoy through the translators drops down to nothing? You calculated an average per tower, didn't you, at one point?
The stations are going to be the first ones to regroup into the core that we're left with. Mm-hmm. The translator network will then have to adjust and build their plan from where the stations are. It's again, as I mentioned, it's a complex and it's been a cooperative effort over the years between three basic groups, and that is the counties. The University of Utah has been a key player in our TV translator network, and the broadcasters. And I think that's the one thing that makes Utah unique, is that over the years we have collectively worked together to build a system that is recognized nationwide.
Now, if I were talking to an FCC commissioner and looking at their mindset right now, they'd say, well, we just don't have enough broadband spectrum in Baltimore, in New Jersey. We don't have enough spectrum in New York and Philadelphia, and there's a push to get more broadband in there so people can rely on their independent communications through 4G and 3G and whatever it is. And that may well be, but that comes at the detriment here because of their policy. Is there something they could do to...
And the problem is they're treating everybody like we're vanilla ice cream. You know, they're treating everything exactly the same, not taking any consideration into the unique communities that are being served across this country. You know, our television group, Nexstar, owns right now over almost 120 television stations, serving 18% of the population, and many of them are in small communities, providing local services. This is really, really a problem, especially in the fact that they're not taking into consideration that all the new technology and compression that's moving forward means that this might, within a year or two, this might not even be necessary at all. Because, you know, as the engineers can tell you, this is growing by leaps and bounds, and there'll be more ways to give more ways of broadcasting all those wireless services through broadband, but they're not taking that in consideration either. This is just a land grab because they want to do it before President Obama goes out of office.
So, yes, please do, Ralph.
Add, Chad, we were talking about rural service out there, but it's more than just rural service. When we were working on the resolution a few years ago to send back to the FCC and to our congressional delegation to work on this, what we found was there was support from the entire legislature, as much from the urban folks as those out in the rural areas, because you have a guy with a cabin in above Ogden, Weber County, in that area.
Out Bear Lake.
Yeah, and a bunch of them in Bear Lake, and we've got tourists coming through all of the national parks and the state parks, and this is the way they get their service. And so it's a really much more complicated system than most people realize, and what they don't realize is it wouldn't be just those outlying areas, including our reservations and some of those kinds of areas that aren't served.
You're absolutely right. The Indian reservations, I think people that go over to Grantsville to into Park City would be shocked at what would happen if those translators disappear.
I noticed on the translator map that even parts of Tooele, sitting right under Farnsworth Peak, needs a translator to get their signal.
That's absolutely true.
That's just mind-blowing to me.
This has been we are the most, Utah, in the way the broadcasters are working with the counties, and as you said, with all the engineers, has been a model for the whole country. I mean, everybody got together to do this. I can tell you unequivocally, if they push us to less than 30 channels, it'll be a disaster. It will be an unmitigated disaster for this state. No matter what we do, we will not be able to cover, and people just won't receive television. So I can tell you that without any hesitation or equivocation.
What have you got loaded in the chamber of your political gun, Ralph? Is there anything that the state can do as far as the Senate, the governor's office?
Well, it's a real good question. The University of Utah has been out working a lot with some of the AOGs, some of the groups of legislators around the state and county commissioners, and that's really important. That's really helpful. But the people need to get involved in this. This is not something that a politician or our delegation can fix. It's got to be bigger than that, because there are so many intangibles that go into this. You've got pressure from the other side as well, who are wanting that bandwidth. And they have some political clout too, so it's a difficult situation.
Wow. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with our final thoughts on this. Wish we had an hour, Richard. We'll see you in a minute on the County Seat.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high. The stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
149 million years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
Color. It's something that can be seen. But have you ever wanted to reach out and touch it? Experience it. In San Juan County, Utah, color comes to life like nowhere else on earth. Color can be more than an abstract. Color can be your gateway to a new world. Visit San Juan County and explore the past, present, and future in a way that you've only dreamed of. San Juan County. Color your experience.
Along Interstate 70 and Highway 89 is an area that is rich with high mountain peaks, vast forests, lakes, streams, historical sites, and a climate that is perfect for outdoor adventures, no matter what the season. Whether you visit Sevier County to catch one of the many celebrations, experience a country-style county fair, or be part of various concerts, sports, or equestrian events, you will be greeted by local residents with a smile and a welcoming hand. In the center of it all, Sevier County.
Beautiful scene, isn't it? The great wide spaces of the wild, wild West. Hi, I'm Chad Booth, host of At Your Leisure. I'm asking you to support the Blue Ribbon Coalition. Their efforts responsibly preserve access to our public lands. If it were not for the Blue Ribbon Coalition and their efforts, you may not have access to millions of acres of land across the West. This is America's playground, and if we don't do anything, we are going to lose it. Join, participate, and donate. Welcome back to the County Seat. We are talking today about the translator system in Utah, the fact that it may be in jeopardy with a change by the FCC. How do we approach this? I mean, you have the access to a lot of people, Richard, obviously, through a signal.
Well,
what do we do?
I've made this one of my passion projects, really, over the last 3 years to really get involved. Let me help people understand the timing of your show, Chad, is so perfect for this weekend, because we've all been hearing about what's been going on in Oregon with the people, the ranchers going nuts and going onto the federal land that they felt was taken from them illegally. I know there's some really strong feelings in this state. You know, so much of our state has been literally stolen by the federal government, and we have many of our elected officials trying to stop that. This is yet another, if you could think of this as the BLM and the Bureau of Land Management and just coming in and saying, you know, we really like that section of land, we're taking it. Well, that's literally what they're doing to the broadcasters and the translators. They're just coming in and saying, you know, we know better what to do than you do, we're taking that away from you. No discussion, and they've even said to us, we can't even have a reasonable conversation on this because they don't want to get involved and talk it because they think they're smarter than we are and they think they've got it all figured out.
So when you give me that set of facts, that does seem to add up to a political motivation as opposed to a best, highest use or
Absolutely.
Public interest motivation.
There's no question. In fact, I think if you talk to people off record on both sides, they'll admit it.
Wow. So what do you do? What somebody at home, you know, do you call Cousin Vinny in Chicago and say, hey, you're in this boat too, we need to do something? What do you do to try to move that needle? Because they will react, won't they, if you get enough pressure?
I think so. I think you reach out to your elected officials, both state and federal. Very important, your Congress and senators. I've been educated. I'm doing my very best they're very concerned, but everybody needs to do it.
One final comment I have, and I think back about my father who pioneered TV translators. And I can remember listening to him over a period of time. He talked about when cable came along, he was told that there would be no need for translators anymore. When satellite TV came along, there would be no need for translators. Now there's internet, there will be no need for translators. Because of the economics that are involved with it, I truthfully believe that translator service can be around for many years to come, provided that our federal license authorizations are not revoked or taken away.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for allowing us into your home. You have your marching orders. Get involved in this issue. You know, if you're hooked to the county seat and you don't live in Salt Lake, Ogden, or Provo, and you want to keep watching it, well, it's probably pretty important that you pick up this gauntlet and run with it. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week on the county seat. Remember, you can find us on our website, thecountyseat.tv, and like us on Facebook. We'll see you later. Thanks.
Do you crave adventure? Do you want to escape and find a new world to discover? Do you sit around wondering what to do next? Well, if you answered yes to any of these questions, you need a prescription of At Your Leisure, Saturday nights at 10:30 and Sunday morning at 9 on ABC4 Utah.
If you'd like to share this video with your friends, well, you do that right here. If you would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, you do that over here. If you'd like to interact with us on the county seat, that happens over here. If you want to watch the next episode of the county seat, you can catch it Saturday night at 11 or Sunday morning at 8:30 on ABC4 Good for Utah.